No one knows how much a grandmother can endure until she sees her grandson suffer. I discovered this on an April afternoon when I returned home early and overheard something that shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm 68 years old, and I've dedicated my entire life to my family. I was widowed young when my only daughter, Sophia, was barely 12. Since then, I worked day and night in the small bakery I inherited from my husband, Manuel. I would knead bread from 4 in the morning, serve customers all day, and close when the sun had already set, all so that my Sophia would want for nothing. Over time, I transformed that small bakery into a chain of bakeries, Elena's Bread, which spread throughout Valencia. The business grew so much that I was able to buy a beautiful house in the most exclusive neighborhood and give my daughter the education she deserved. Sophia married Alexander, a lawyer from a good family, and the following year, Lucas was born, my only grandson. The day I held him in my arms for the first time, I felt my heart beating with the same strength as when I was young. His tiny fingers grabbed my index finger, and I knew I would do anything for him. Lucas grew up to be a cheerful and intelligent boy. From an early age, he showed a special talent for music. When he was 6, I gave him his first guitar, and although his little fingers could barely span the neck, he spent hours trying to create melodies. I would watch him from my living room armchair with a smile that took up my entire face. "Grandma, are you listening? I'm composing a song for you," he would say with his bright eyes. "It's the most beautiful song I've ever heard, my child," I would respond, even if they were just out-of-tune notes. When Lucas turned 15, Sophia and Alexander divorced. It was a hard blow for everyone, especially for my grandson. Alexander moved to the United States for work, and visits became scarce. Sophia, meanwhile, immersed herself in her career as an architect, traveling constantly. So, without planning it, Lucas ended up living with me most of the time. I didn't complain. Having my grandson at home filled my days with joy. I prepared his favorite dishes, helped him with his homework, and attended all his guitar recitals. Lucas had become a talented young man. He was already composing his own songs and dreamed of studying at the Superior Conservatory of Music. Everything changed that November afternoon. Lucas had gone out with some friends. It was Friday, and he called to tell me he would be a little late. "Don't worry, Grandma. We'll be at Martin's house rehearsing for the end of your concert." "Be careful, my child, and don't come back too late," I said, as always. At 11 at night, I received a call that froze my blood. It was from Lafay Hospital. Lucas had been in an accident. A drunk driver had run a red light and crashed into the car where my grandson was traveling with his friends. I arrived at the hospital with my heart in my throat. The doctor explained the situation. Lucas had suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. He was alive, but in a coma. The next 48 hours would be crucial. I collapsed in the waiting room. Tears blurred my vision, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I called Sophia, who was in Barcelona for work. She took the first flight and arrived in Valencia that same dawn. The following days were a nightmare. Lucas remained in a coma, and the doctors couldn't give us a clear prognosis. Sophia was destroyed, blaming herself for not being more present in her son's life. "Mom, I've been a terrible mother," she sobbed in my arms. "Always prioritizing my work, my trips. What if he doesn't wake up? What if I can't tell him how much I love him?" I held her tight without finding words of comfort because I myself was torn apart inside. After 2 weeks, Lucas woke from the coma. It was a moment of immense joy, but soon we faced the harsh reality. The accident had left sequelae. My grandson suffered from balance problems, difficulty speaking, and partial memory loss. The doctors explained that he would need intensive rehabilitation. Sophia had to return to Barcelona. Her company was in the middle of an important project, and she couldn't abandon it. She promised to return every weekend and send money for the treatments. "I trust you, Mom. I know you'll take good care of him." And that's how Lucas came back home with me, now with a new reality. My sweet grandson, who used to fill the house with guitar melodies, now spent hours in silence, frustrated by not being able to coordinate his movements to play. The first months were hard. I hired the best specialists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, neuropsychologists. I sold 2 of my bakeries to be able to afford all the treatments. Nothing was too much for my Lucas. Little by little, we started to see improvements. After 6 months, Lucas could walk with the help of a cane. His speech improved day by day, although he still struggled to articulate some words. However, what hurt me the most was seeing how his passion for music seemed to have extinguished. His guitar was gathering dust in a corner of his room. One night, I entered his room and found him watching old videos of his recitals. "I'll never be able to play like that again, Grandma," he said with a broken voice. I sat beside him and took his hands. "My child, the music is still inside you. Maybe you can't play like before, but we'll find a way. We're not going to give up." The next morning, I looked for a music teacher specialized in teaching people with disabilities. Daniel, a young musician full of energy and patience, began visiting our house 3 times a week. At first, Lucas resisted, but Daniel knew how to motivate him. "It doesn't matter how it sounds at first, Lucas. What matters is the music makes you feel something in here," he would say, pointing to his heart. Little by little, I saw a small flame reignite in my grandson's eyes. He didn't play like before, but he had found a new way to express himself through music. Around that time, Sophia began to visit less. There was always an excuse, an important project, a meeting she couldn't cancel. When she did come, she spent more time on the phone than with her son. Lucas noticed and grew sad, though he never said so openly. It was then that Sophia introduced us to Valerie, her new partner, an elegant, sophisticated woman who worked as an interior designer. At first, Valerie seemed kind and attentive to Lucas. She brought him gifts, encouraged him in his rehabilitation, and seemed genuinely interested in his well-being. One day, Sophia called me with the news that took me by surprise.
"Mom, Valerie and I are getting married, and we want Lucas to come live with us in Barcelona." I felt a knot in my stomach. Not because Sophia was marrying a woman, that didn't matter to me, but because I was afraid of separating from Lucas. He had been living with me for over a year. We were in the middle of his recovery, and I didn't know how such a drastic change would affect his progress. "Sophia, are you sure? Lucas is advancing a lot with his therapies here in Valencia." "Mom, Barcelona has excellent hospitals and specialists. Besides, he's my son. I want to be present in his recovery." I couldn't argue with that. After all, Sophia was his mother, and I was just his grandmother. So, with a heavy heart, I helped Lucas prepare his things to move to Barcelona. The farewell was painful. Lucas hugged me tight and whispered in my ear, "I'm going to miss you so much, Grandma." "Me too, my child, but we'll see each other soon. I'll visit you whenever I can." At that moment, as I watched the car drive away, I couldn't imagine that one of the most difficult chapters of our lives was about to begin. At first, everything seemed to be going well. I talked to Lucas every day via video call. He told me about his new school, his therapies, and how Valerie was teaching him to cook Italian dishes, as she was of Italian origin. After a month, I traveled to Barcelona to visit them. They accommodated me in a guest room in their spacious apartment in the Pedralbes neighborhood. Valerie was charming, always smiling and attentive. Sophia seemed happy, more relaxed than I had seen her in years. However, I noticed small details that disturbed me. Lucas was quieter than usual. When I asked him about his music classes, he quickly changed the subject. I also observed that Valerie constantly intervened in conversations, as if she didn't want Lucas to talk too much with me. One night, I heard Lucas playing the piano. They had bought one for his music therapy. The melody was beautiful, but melancholy. I silently approached the half-open door of his room and saw him with tears in his eyes as he played. The next day, before returning to Valencia, I asked him if he was okay. "Everything's perfect, Grandma," he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Don't worry about me." Visits became less frequent. Sophia always had an excuse to postpone my trip. They were busy, they had social commitments, Lucas was in an exam period. My video calls with Lucas also decreased. Now we only talked once a week, and always with Valerie or Sophia present. My concern grew day by day. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my gut. What secrets was that seemingly happy family hiding? And why did I feel that my grandson was drifting further and further away from me? I discovered the truth in the most painful way possible. I decided to surprise them by showing up in Barcelona unannounced. It was Lucas's birthday, and although Sophia had told me they would celebrate it as a family, I felt I should be there. I had been baking my grandson's favorite cookies for weeks, the ones with chocolate chips that he had loved since he was little. I took the first morning train and arrived in Barcelona around noon. I carried with me a special gift, an adapted guitar that I had specifically ordered for Lucas's needs. It had cost me a fortune, but I had sold another one of my bakeries to be able to pay for it. When I reached the building, the doorman recognized me and let me in without announcing me. I wanted it to be a real surprise. I went up in the elevator, my heart beating with excitement at the thought of seeing my grandson's face when he saw me. Upon reaching the door, I was about to ring the bell when I heard agitated voices inside. I stopped, my hand suspended in the air. I recognized Valerie's voice, which sounded cold and cutting. "I'm sick of having to pretend I care about your recovery. Do you know what it's like to live with an invalid? Every day I have to remind your mother to take her anxiety medication, and now I have to put up with your clumsiness too." I froze. Lucas's voice, trembling, barely audible, responded, "I'm sorry, Valerie. I didn't mean to spill coffee on your design. That design was for an important client. But of course, you and your fat grandmother think the world revolves around you, always calling, always asking. It's unbearable." My blood boiled in my veins. How dare she speak to my grandson like that? And where was Sophia when this was happening? "My grandma only worries about me," Lucas murmured. "Your grandma is a meddler who doesn't know when to step aside. Do you know why Sophia takes so many pills? Because she can't stand the pressure of having to deal with you and her at the same time." I couldn't contain myself any longer. I opened the door with my key. Sophia had given me a copy for emergencies, and entered. The scene left me breathless. Lucas was in his wheelchair, hunched over, head down, while Valerie, elegantly dressed, looked at him with disdain from her height. Both turned in surprise to see me. Valerie's face changed instantly, transforming her expression of rage into a forced smile. "Elena, what a pleasant surprise. We didn't know you were coming." "Clearly," I replied, with a calmness I didn't feel. "Had you known, perhaps you wouldn't have been insulting my grandson or me." Lucas had eyes full of tears, a mixture of shame and relief on his face. "Grandma," he whispered. I approached him, leaving the guitar and cookies on the floor, and hugged him tightly. "I'm here, my child. I'm here." Valerie became defensive. "Elena, I think you've misinterpreted the situation. Lucas and I were just having a small disagreement." "I heard you perfectly, Valerie. Don't try to deny it." At that moment, Sophia entered the apartment. She froze when she saw me there. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to celebrate my grandson's birthday, but I found something very different from a celebration." I told her what I had heard. I expected indignation, shock, perhaps even Sophia confronting Valerie. But what I saw stunned me. My daughter lowered her gaze, avoiding looking me in the eyes. Mom, things are complicated. Valerie has been under a lot of pressure at work, and taking care of Lucas isn't easy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter justifying the mistreatment of her son. Are you defending her? He's your son, Sophia. Your son. You don't understand, Sophia shouted, with wild eyes. You don't know what it's like to live like this. Lucas needs constant attention. The therapies are extremely expensive, and I can't handle everything. I looked at my daughter as if she were a stranger. This wasn't the Sophia I had raised. Where are the medicines you take? I asked, remembering what Valerie had mentioned. Sophia tensed. That's none of your business. Show me, I insisted. After a moment of hesitation, Sophia took a pill bottle from her purse. I took it and read the label. They were potent anxiolytics, prescribed in Valerie's name, not Sophia's. Everything started to make sense. Valerie was medicating my daughter, probably without her being fully aware of what she was taking. Sophia, these pills are very strong. Do you even know what you're taking? Valerie says they help me with anxiety. I looked at Valerie, who maintained an impassive, almost calculating expression. Lucas is coming with me to Valencia, right now. You can't do that, Valerie protested. Sophia has custody. Do you want me to call social services and tell them how you treat my grandson? Or perhaps you'd prefer we talk about how you're medicating my daughter without medical supervision. Valerie paled. Sophia seemed confused, as if waking from a long dream. Mom, I didn't know. I thought Valerie... We'll talk later, Sophia. Now, help me prepare Lucas's things. That afternoon, Lucas and I took the train back to Valencia. The journey passed in silence. My grandson looked out the window with a mixture of sadness and relief on his face. Why didn't you tell me what was happening? I finally asked. Lucas sighed. I didn't want to worry you, Grandma. And Mom seemed so happy with Valerie, at least at first. Then everything changed. But Mom was already, absent. She would take those pills and barely notice what was happening around her. I took his hand. You're safe now, my child. You won't go through something like this again. What I didn't know at that moment was that our problems were just beginning, and that soon I would have to make the most difficult decision of my life to protect my grandson. Upon returning to Valencia, I installed Lucas in his old room. I promised him that everything would improve, that we would return to our routines from before. I hired Daniel, the music teacher, again, and we resumed the physiotherapy sessions. My grandson began to smile again, although the shadow of what he had experienced in Barcelona remained present in his eyes. A week later, I received a call from Sophia. Her voice sounded different, clearer, as if she had finally awakened from that lethargy induced by the pills. Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I could let things go so far. I've ended things with Valerie, and I'm seeing a therapist. I'm glad to hear that, daughter, I replied, feeling cautious relief. I want to fix things with Lucas. Can I come see you this weekend? I agreed, of course. Despite everything, Sophia was my daughter and Lucas's mother. I believe in second chances and the people's capacity to change. The reunion between mother and son was emotional. Sophia cried as she hugged Lucas, asking his forgiveness over and over. My grandson, with that kindness that has always characterized him, forgave him unconditionally. I love you, Mom. I just want you to be okay, he told her. During the following weeks, Sophia traveled to Valencia every weekend. Our relationship began to heal, and Lucas improved notably in his therapies. He even started composing again, adapting to his new capabilities. Everything seemed to be heading towards normalcy, until that fateful May afternoon, almost 6 months after having rescued Lucas from Barcelona. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the phone rang. It was Adela, my neighbor and friend for decades. "Elena, I don't want to alarm you, but I just saw Valerie enter your building." My heart skipped a beat. "Are you sure?" "Completely. She came with another woman, an elegant blonde." "Sophia?" I asked, though my daughter wasn't blonde. "No, not your daughter. It was someone else. They were carrying briefcases like for documents." I hung up and ran to Lucas's room. He was practicing with his adapted guitar. "Lucas, stay here and don't open the door to anyone," I told him, trying to stay calm. I had barely finished saying that when the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and headed to the door. On opening it, I found myself face to face with Valerie and a woman I didn't know, dressed in an impeccable tailored suit. "Elena, how nice to see you again," said Valerie with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let me introduce you to Dr. Martinez, a psychiatrist specialized in capacity evaluations." "What does this mean?" I asked, blocking the entrance. "We've come to evaluate Lucas," replied the psychiatrist. "Mrs. Valerie Ricci has filed a complaint for kidnapping and manipulation of a patient with diminished capacities." "Kidnapping? He's my grandson, and his mother knows perfectly well that he's here." "According to the documentation we have," intervened Valerie, "Sophia was not in adequate mental conditions to make decisions about Lucas's custody when you took him away. We've presented evidence that you took advantage of your daughter's vulnerability to manipulate her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Valerie had meticulously planned everything. "My daughter is perfectly fine now. You can call her and confirm it." Valerie smiled with sufficiency. "We've already done that. Unfortunately, Sophia has suffered another anxiety crisis and is admitted to a clinic. As her legal partner, and with power of attorney over her affairs, I'm here to represent her interests." The world seemed to stop around me. Sophia? Admitted? Power of attorney? Nothing made sense. "I won't allow you to take Lucas," I said firmly. "And if you try to enter by force, I'll call the police." "We are the authority, madam," said the psychiatrist, showing me an official document. "We have a court order to evaluate Lucas's situation. If you resist, you'll be the one having problems with the law." At that moment, Lucas appeared behind me. "What's going on, Grandma?" he asked, and then he saw Valerie. "What is she doing here?" Valerie changed her expression instantly, showing false concern. "Lucas, sweetie, we've come to help you. Your mother is very worried about you." "My mother comes to see me every weekend," Lucas replied, confused. "We're fine." "That's what your grandmother has made you believe," intervened the psychiatrist. "I'm Dr. Martinez, and I'm here to evaluate you and ensure you're receiving adequate care." Lucas looked at me, fear evident in his eyes. "Grandma, I don't want to go with them." I put a hand on his shoulder, trying to convey calm. "You're not going anywhere, my child." But I knew we were in a delicate situation. If I resisted the court order, they could accuse me of obstruction, and it would be worse. I needed time to contact a lawyer and find out what had really happened to Sophia. "All right," I finally said. "You can evaluate Lucas, but I'll be present at all times." The psychiatrist nodded. "That's fair."
The next 2 hours were torture. Dr. Martinez asked Lucas a series of clearly biased questions, oriented to make him doubt his well-being with me. Valerie remained on the sidelines, observing with a barely disguised smile. When they finally left, promising to return the next day to continue with the evaluation, I collapsed on the sofa. Lucas approached and took my hand. "Grandma, what are we going to do?" I looked into his eyes, those eyes that had seen too much suffering for someone so young. "We're going to fight, my child, as we've always done." That night, while Lucas slept, I called Federico,
an old lawyer friend who had helped my husband Manuel with legal matters of the business many years ago. "Elena, what you're telling me is very serious," he said after listening to the whole story. "If Valerie really has Sophia's power of attorney and has managed to have her admitted, we're dealing with severe manipulation. We need to act quickly." "What can we do?" "Tomorrow at first light, I'll file a protection order for Lucas. Meanwhile, try to contact Sophia, find out which clinic she's in, and Elena, be careful. This woman seems capable of anything." After hanging up, I stayed awake, my mind working at full speed. What did Valerie really want? Why so much interest in Lucas? And then I remembered something I had overlooked, Manuel's will. My husband, always cautious, had left an important part of his estate in a trust for Lucas, a trust that would be activated when Lucas turned 21 or in case of extreme medical necessity. A trust that, if Lucas was under someone's legal custody, that person could administer. Everything started to make sense. Valerie didn't want Lucas, she wanted the trust money, and to get it, she needed legal custody of my grandson. The next morning, I made a decision that would change our lives forever. I woke Lucas before dawn. "My child, we have to leave," I told him as I helped him get dressed. "Leave? Where to?" "Far from here for a while. Trust me." Lucas looked into my eyes, those eyes that had seen too much suffering for someone so young. "I trust you, Grandma." I called my friend Carmen, who lived in a small coastal town near Alicante. I briefly explained the situation to her, and she didn't hesitate to offer us refuge. "Come right now, Elena. My house is your house." I prepared a small suitcase with the essentials, clothes, Lucas's medications, and some important documents. I called a taxi, and we headed to the bus station. We took the first bus to Alicante as the first rays of sun began to appear on the horizon. During the journey, Lucas dozed off, leaning on my shoulder. I looked out the window, my heart divided between fear and determination. I was fleeing with my grandson, something that could legally be considered kidnapping, but in my heart, I knew I was doing the right thing. Protecting Lucas was the only thing that mattered. As the bus advanced along the coastal road, I thought of Sophia. Was she really admitted, or was it another lie from Valerie? I needed to find my daughter, but first I had to put Lucas in a safe place. The town where Carmen lived, Santa Rosa del Mar, was a small and quiet place away from tourist routes. Carmen, a widow, like me, lived in a modest but welcoming house near the beach. She received us with open arms. "This room will be for you," she told us, showing us a simple room with 2 beds. "It's not much, but I hope you feel comfortable." "It's perfect, Carmen. I don't know how to thank you." "There's nothing to thank me for. You would have done the same for me." That night, after putting Lucas to bed, I went out to the small porch of the house. The sound of the waves breaking on the beach came clearly, mixing with the singing of the crickets. Carmen sat beside me and offered me a cup of tea. "What are you going to do now, Elena?" I sighed deeply. I need to find Sophia. If Valerie has really had her admitted, I have to get her out of there. And I need a lawyer to help us fight against Valerie. My nephew Javier is a lawyer. He's not a specialist in family law, but he knows people who are. I'll call him tomorrow. I thanked her with a tired smile. The weight of the events had left me exhausted, but I couldn't allow myself to rest. There was too much at stake. The next morning, Lucas woke up more animated. The change of environment seemed to have done him good. "I like this place, Grandma," he told me as we had breakfast on the terrace. "The air smells like salt." "Yes, my child, it's a good place to rest and recover." Carmen had left us alone. She had gone to visit her nephew to talk about our situation. While Lucas enjoyed breakfast, my mind wouldn't stop turning. What would be happening in Valencia? Would Valerie and the psychiatrist had gone to our house? Would they have already alerted the authorities about our disappearance? My phone rang, startling me. It was an unknown number. I hesitated but finally answered. "Elena, it's Federico, your lawyer." "Federico, thank God. I was waiting for your call." "Elena, where are you? Valerie has filed a kidnapping complaint. The police are looking for you." I felt the ground opening beneath my feet. "It's not kidnapping, Federico. I'm protecting my grandson." "I know, but legally, it's complicated. I need you to return to Valencia with Lucas so we can face this correctly." "I can't do that. Valerie has some kind of power over Sophia. She's had her admitted in some clinic." "About that, I've been investigating." Sofia is admitted at the Montserrat Clinic on the outskirts of Barcelona. According to the records, she entered voluntarily due to a severe anxiety crisis. Voluntarily? That's impossible. Sophia was fine. She was recovering. Elena, there's something else you should know. I've reviewed the legal documents, and Valerie really does have a power of attorney. She granted it to her 3 months ago. The news hit me like a hammer. 3 months? That meant that Sophia had given that power to Valerie while she seemed to be recovering, while she was visiting us every weekend in Valencia. It doesn't make sense. Unless Sophia was acting under coercion or wasn't in full possession of her faculties. I need you to tell me everything about the pills you mentioned. I explained in detail what I had discovered about the anxiolytics that Valerie was giving to Sophia. Federico took note of everything. This could be key, Elena. If we can prove that Valerie was medicating Sophia without adequate medical supervision, we could invalidate the power of attorney and any decision made under her influence. How do we prove it?
We need to talk to Sophia directly. And we also need a medical report that confirms the effects of those pills on her capacity to make decisions. While I was talking to Federico, I saw Carmen approaching the house. She was accompanied by a young man who I assumed would be her nephew, Javier. "Federico, I have to leave you. I'll call you later." After hanging up, I introduced myself to Javier. He was a man of about 35, with a serious but kind expression. "My aunt has told me about your situation, Mrs. Elena. It's complicated, but I believe we can help you." "How?" "I have a colleague in Barcelona who is a specialist in family law. He can visit your daughter at the clinic and evaluate her situation. Meanwhile, you and Lucas should stay here, off the radar." The plan seemed sensible to me, but I was worried about Sophia. If she really was sedated or under the influence of medications, how could she help us? What if Sophia is not in a condition to speak? My colleague will bring an independent doctor to evaluate her. If she's being improperly medicated, we'll document it and file a complaint. For the first time in days, I felt a ray of hope. We had a plan, people willing to help us, and the truth on our side. During the following days, Lucas and I adapted to life in Santa Rosa del Mar. My grandson seemed to be reborn in that quiet environment. We spent the mornings on the beach, where contact with the sand and water turned out to be an excellent therapy for his mobility problems. Carmen introduced us to Martín, a retired fisherman who had suffered a stroke years ago and had had to relearn to walk and talk. Martín and Lucas connected immediately. The old man taught my grandson tricks to improve his balance and coordination, all wrapped in stories of marine adventures that Lucas listened to, fascinated. "Grandma, Martin says I can learn to swim again," Lucas told me one afternoon, with his eyes bright with excitement. "He says the water holds us all equally, regardless of our limitations." Those words moved me deeply. Here, far from Valencia, far from Valerie and her manipulations, my grandson was finding a new way to see his condition, not as a permanent limitation, but as a challenge to overcome. One afternoon, while Lucas was practicing on the beach with Martín, I received the call I had been waiting for. It was Javier. "Mrs. Elena, I have news. My colleague Santiago has visited the Montserrat Clinic. He managed to see your daughter Sophia." "How is she?" I asked, with my heart in my throat. "Not very well. She's clearly sedated, although conscious. Santiago brought an independent psychiatrist who confirmed she's receiving excessively high doses of anti-anxiolytics." "Could he talk to her?" "Yes, briefly. Sophia recognized Santiago as a lawyer and told him she wants to get out of there, that she didn't enter voluntarily, as stated in the records." "I knew it," I said, with rage and relief at the same time. "What can we do now?" "Santiago has filed a habeas corpus petition to get Sophia out of the clinic. He has also requested the invalidation of the power of attorney based on the psychiatrist's report on Sophia's state when she presumably signed the document. How long will all that take? Legal processes are slow, Mrs. Elena. It could take weeks, even months. The news discouraged me. We didn't have that much time. At any moment, Valerie could discover our whereabouts. There's something else we can do, continued Javier. If we have concrete evidence that Valerie was medicating Sophia without adequate medical prescription, we could file a criminal complaint. That would speed up the whole process. What kind of evidence do we need? Ideally, we would have the pill bottle you saw in Barcelona, the one that was in Valerie's name but that Sophia was taking, or witnesses who can confirm that Valerie administered those medications to your daughter. I thought intensely. I didn't have access to the pill bottle, but perhaps there was another way. What if I get Valerie to admit it? By recording a conversation, for example. Javier hesitated. That could be risky, and depending on how the recording is obtained, it might not be legally admissible, but it would definitely give us a direction in which to investigate. After hanging up, I stood looking at the sea, thinking about what I should do. I knew I was about to make a dangerous decision, but I saw no other way out. I had to confront Valerie directly. That night, after Lucas had fallen asleep, I called Valerie. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. After 3 rings, she answered. Elena? Her voice sounded surprised. Where the hell are you? Do you know there's a search order against you? I know, Valerie, but before turning myself in, I want to negotiate. Negotiate? What do you have that could interest me? Information about Lucas's trust. There was silence on the other end of the line. I had hit the nail on the head. I don't know what you're talking about, she finally said, but her tone had changed. I know it's what you're after, Valerie. It's not Lucas. It's not Sophia. It's the trust money that my husband left for our grandson. Another silence, longer this time. Suppose you're right, she finally said. What do you propose? First, I need to know that Sophia is okay. Get her out of that clinic. Sophia is receiving the care she needs. She has severe anxiety problems. Problems caused by you and those pills you've been giving her. Do you think I don't know what you've been doing? Drugging my daughter to control her, to get that power of attorney? That's ridiculous. Sophia gave me that power of attorney voluntarily. After months of taking those pills that you gave her, pills that are in your name, not hers. What do you think a judge will say when they find out? Valerie's breathing accelerated on the other end of the line. You have no proof. I have Lucas's testimony, and soon I'll have Sophia's when they get her out of that clinic and she detoxifies from the drugs you've been giving her. What exactly do you want, Elena? Asked Valerie with a voice that tried to maintain calm but betrayed her nervousness. I told you, I want Sophia out of that clinic, and I want you to renounce any claim over Lucas. In exchange, I'll tell you how to legally access part of the trust. It was a lie, of course. I had no intention of giving her access to a single cent of the money destined for Lucas, but I needed to keep her interested, to get her to admit what she had done. How do I know I can trust you? You can't, just as I can't trust you. But we both want something the other has.
There was another silence, as Valerie considered my words. Fine, she finally said. Let's see Sophia tomorrow. Come to the clinic at 10 in the morning, alone, without Lucas. Then we'll talk about the trust. I'll be there. After hanging up, I immediately called Javier to tell him my plan. He seemed worried. It's too risky, Mrs. Elena. Valerie could be setting a trap. Besides, the police are looking for you. We have no other option, Javier. It's the only way to get evidence against Valerie and help Sofia. But I'll need your help, and that of your colleague, Santiago. Javier sighed, resigned. What do you need us to do? I explained my plan. It was risky, yes, but if it worked, we could free Sofia and protect Lucas once and for all. The next morning dawned cloudy, as if foretelling the storm that was approaching in our lives. I said goodbye to Lucas with a lump in my throat. I had told him I was going to see a doctor specialized in neurological rehabilitation and that I would return in the afternoon. Take care, Grandma, he told me, hugging me, and come back soon. I will, my child, I promise. Carmen drove me in her car to the train station. From there, I took the first train to Barcelona. During the journey, I mentally reviewed every detail of the plan. There was no room for errors. I arrived at the Montserrat Clinic shortly before 10. It was a modern building, surrounded by well-maintained gardens that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical center. Valerie was waiting for me at the entrance, elegant as always, wearing a fitted black dress and sunglasses despite the cloudy day. Punctual, as always, she said by way of greeting. Follow me. We entered the clinic. The interior was as luxurious as the exterior promised. Marble floors, designer furniture, staff with impeccable uniforms. Valerie guided me to a private meeting room. Wait here. I'll go get Sofia. I was left alone in the room, my heart beating 1,000 times a minute. Would the plan be working? Would Santiago have arrived in time? After what seemed like an eternity, the door opened. Valerie entered, followed by Sofia. My heart shrank when I saw my daughter. She was pale, thin, with pronounced dark circles. Her movements were slow, as if each step required an enormous effort. Mom, is that really you? She asked with a weak voice. I stood up and hugged her. I felt her bones under the hospital gown, as fragile as a bird's. Yes, my girl, it's me. I've come to get you out of here. Sofia sobbed against my shoulder. They gave me pills, Mom. So many pills. I didn't know what was real anymore. I looked at Valerie over Sofia's shoulder. Her expression was cold, calculating. How touching, she said with sarcasm. Now, let's talk about the trust. How can I access it? I gently separated Sofia from me and helped her sit down. Then I faced Valerie. First, I want you to tell me exactly what you've been giving my daughter and why. Valerie shrugged. Just anxiolytics. Sofia has always been too sensitive, too emotional. She needed to calm down. And by chance, were those anxiolytics prescribed in your name, not hers? A small administrative detail. My psychiatrist prescribed them to me, I gave them to her. It was easier that way. And was it also a small administrative detail to increase the dose so she would sign the power of attorney? Or so she would agree to admit Lucas to that center you suggested? Valerie narrowed her eyes. You're recording this conversation, aren't you? That's why so many specific questions. I smiled slightly. No, Valerie. I don't need to record anything. At that moment, the door opened, and Santiago, Javier's colleague, entered accompanied by a doctor and 2 police officers. Valerie Ricci, you are under arrest for illegal administration of medications, coercion, and fraud. Valerie's face transformed into a mask of fury. This is a trap, she shouted, looking at me with hatred. She's the one who kidnapped Lucas. We have the testimony of Dr. Ferrer, who has evaluated Sofia Vasquez and has confirmed that she has been receiving inadequate doses of psychotropic medications, said the police officer, imperturbable. We also have your confession, which you just made in front of official witnesses. While the police handcuffed Valerie, Dr. Ferrer approached Sofia. We're going to transfer you to another hospital, Mrs. Vasquez. You need proper care to detox correctly. Sofia nodded weakly, clinging to my hand. Where is Lucas, Mom? Is he okay? He's safe, my girl.
Soon we'll all be together again. As I watched Valerie being taken away by the police, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. We had won this battle, but at a very high price. My daughter was damaged physically and emotionally. My grandson had gone through a trauma that no young person should experience, and I had to make decisions I never thought I would have to make. But at least now we could begin to heal. Together, as it always should have been. 3 months later, the three of us were sitting on the terrace of our new house in Santa Rosa del Mar. I had decided to sell the bakeries in Valencia and buy a small bakery in the village. It was a simpler life, but infinitely happier. Sophia had recovered remarkably after detoxification. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her smile, although still fragile at times, became more frequent each day. She had decided to stay with us in the village, at least for now. She was writing a book about her experience, hoping it could help other people recognize toxic and manipulative relationships. Lucas was progressing in his rehabilitation in an amazing way. The therapy sessions in the sea with Martine had strengthened his muscles and improved his coordination. He could now walk short distances with just a cane, and he had returned to playing the guitar regularly. He had even begun to give music classes to the children of the village. "Grandma," Lucas told me that afternoon as we watched the sunset over the sea, "do you remember when you told me that the music was still inside me, even if I couldn't play like before?" "Yes, my child. You were right. The music never left. I just needed to find a new way to express it." Sophia, sitting next to him, put an arm around his shoulders. "You've done it wonderfully, son. Those children adore you." Lucas smiled, with that luminous smile I had missed so much. "I've been composing a song for you two. It's called The Last Embrace." "The Last Embrace?" Sophia asked, confused. "That sounds sad." Lucas shook his head. "It's not sad. It's about how sometimes we think we've given the last embrace to someone we love, that we've lost them forever, but then life surprises us and gives us another chance." Tears accumulated in my eyes. My grandson, who had gone through so much pain, had found a way to transform that experience into something beautiful.
"I'd love to hear it," I said, with my voice broken by emotion. Lucas took his guitar and began to play. The melody was sweet, melancholic at first, but gaining strength and joy with each chord. And as I listened to my grandson sing, with the sun sinking into the horizon and the sea whispering at our feet, I knew that we had found our true home. Not in a mansion in Valencia, nor in a luxurious apartment in Barcelona, but here, together, in the small village by the sea. Because home is not a place, but the people with whom you share your life, your love, and your embraces, even when you think you've given the last one. And as Lucas's song filled the afternoon air, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. We had survived the storm, and now, at last, we could enjoy the sun.